Aiden Rowland, and I'm here with Max Stein, Megan Chada, and Becca Brown. And welcome to the second edition of the YBTC presentations on chapters 5, 6, and 7. We will be taking a closer look at leading and real life examples to relate to the 3 chapters. In chapter 5, we're looking at Byte, chapter 6, Dropbox, and chapter 7, Cody Labs. These 3 examples will provide a clear illustration of the concepts that we discuss in the chapters.
Hi, my name is Becca, and to start, we are going to cover some of the main concepts in chapter 5, which include the business model, customer value proposition, and the business model canvas. The business model is a framework for creating and delivering consumer value while extracting value for the entrepreneur. It includes a network that provides resources for entrepreneurs to deliver value to customers. The 4 main areas of the business model include an offering, customers, infrastructure, and financial viability. The offering indicates what is being offered to the customers and how the offer will eventually reach them. The customer value proposition, which is a true measure of the business model, is included in the offering section of the business model. The CVP is a statement that describes why a customer should buy and use your product or service. Next, the customers are the people willing to pay for your offer, and the infrastructure includes all the resources. And then lastly, the financial viability outlines the revenue and cost structure. The book also covers the different kinds of business models, such as innovation, which is a new market or product, disruption, which disrupts an existing market, and then differentiation, which fulfills unmet needs within an existing product. Next slide. For our real-world example in chapter 5, we use the company Byte, which is a dental product company that saw a problem with the waste dental products produced. This company used a differentiation business model because they took an existing product and then met the needs of their customers for wanting more sustainable dental products. So instead of using plastic tubes and containers for toothpaste and dental floss, the company now ships bite-sized tablets in reusable glass containers to eliminate waste. Next slide. And then lastly, we will cover the business model canvas, which takes the 4 components of the business model and divides them into 9 parts for a more thorough overview. The BMC helps to find answers and promote creativity within the business model. Next, we will move on to chapter 6, where Megan and Aiden discuss how to develop your customers.
Thanks, Becca. So for chapter 6, now that we've kind of covered how we create value for customers, we're going to transition more into how we develop those customers. So looking at our first key concept, it's important to differentiate between a customer, a consumer, and a market. So a customer is going to be the person who pays for that product, and a customer can become a consumer once they use said product. And then your market is going to be a place where you can sell goods and services to people who want to buy them. And customers can be further broken down into 5 different types as outlined in this pie chart. So first, you have your users. These are the people who actually use your products. You have your influencers. These are people who influence the purchasing decisions, as well as recommenders. And these are people who are going to evaluate your product. So whether that be different bloggers or experts. Next, we have your economic buyers, and these are people who approve large sale purchases. So these could be like retail chains or different corporate vice presidents. We also have decision makers, and these are similar to economic buyers, but they have more authority to make those purchasing decisions. And each of these 5 categories are really defined by who the person is, where they are, how do they behave, and really what their needs are. And now we're going to move on to the next slide in terms of your target customer. And so the book outlines the technology adaptation or adoption lifecycle model. And so with this model, we also have 5 different categories of your potential customers. So just to kind of give a high level overview, we have our innovators, and these are really the first people that will try your product and who are willing to take a risk with a new product. Next up, we have our early adopters, and these are people who aren't really motivated by enthusiasm for a new technology, but they are still influential from a business or even the government. Next, we have our early majority. These are people who are interested in the technology as it has more mass market appeal. So they're very risk averse people, and they'll kind of just do it once they realize that other people are doing it. Moving forward, we have our late majority, and these are our skeptics. They're the ones who make up a really large portion of this life cycle. And rounding out this model, we have our laggards, and these are the people who are last to adapt the product and can technically have like a negative attitude towards technology. So now that we understand our target customers, we can really further take a deeper dive into their personas, and these are their profiles or different representations that we create through information and research. And kind of rounding out this chapter on the next slide is our final key concept, and this is market sizing. Hit the next slide, please. Awesome. And so here we have 3 terms that are outlined by the book. For the sake of time, please pause the video, take a look at these definitions. They're important, but I am going to pass it on to Aiden for our real life example.
Yes, so our real life example for this chapter is Dropbox. Dropbox first entered the cloud in 2007 at the beginning of its rapid growth. The company grew to 8 millions of users in the first 18 months, which is rapid growth. But in order to do that, Dropbox had to understand the types of customers that they were going after and the proper avenues to engage them. So to develop customers, they had to get the early adopters excited about the project, which would then lead into the other groups of customers. So what they did was they created an initial landing page before the official release of Dropbox to get those extremely interested in the company on board first. And once they were able to get those customers on board, they were able to refer other customers to the company. And this allowed them to be able to bypass mainstream media and go at it, the marketing by themselves. And it produced great success for Dropbox. So moving on.
Awesome. So going on to chapter 7. So this is where we're testing and experimenting the new idea that a venture is trying to create. So first off is with the hypothesis. So this is any type of assumption that is really being tested through research and experimentation. Once you have the hypothesis, that leads then into the experiment. So it's a test to help you learn and answer questions related to the feasibility and the viability of a venture. And once you get that experiment really set up, you go on to that implementation phase, which is basically low-cost testing and experimentation to really strengthen that idea. And with that, what is really helpful is the GIF Constable's truth curve, where on the left, you see the believability of the information, on to the far right is the level of effort. So it starts off with the interviews and gaining those key questions and that curiosity, and then all the way going up to the live product and business. And I highly recommend looking into this further in the book. Moving on to the next slide. So then we go on taking a deeper look at the prototype. So businesses want to create an MVP, a minimal viable product, which is really getting the maximum amount of validated learning with the least amount of effort. And so some types of prototypes are listed here. And again, I recommend checking out further in the book because they provide really great descriptions. And then how this entire process, we were talking about hypothesis, experimentation, and customers. This is all the key steps in developing your own hypothesis. On to the next slide, please. So once you have that clear hypothesis, then you can really create that experimentation. And these are the clear steps in developing the experimentation. And we always discuss the value of customer feedback and customer-centric organizations. So that's when we then, after the experiment, after we have that hypothesis, understanding from the customer who are going to be using these products and softwares and services, understanding their perspectives even further. Moving on to the real world example. So Code Labs is basically a smart building technology company that really connects every point of a building, from lights, air conditioning, water, on one simple system. So their hypothesis was developing that one simple system that can have a building operate directly through automation with no human interaction. So they went through all the steps in developing the hypothesis, and this was the end result. And when developing the hypothesis, then they went ahead and created an experiment around it. So they created an MVP around a single building and used it to test all the different types of functionalities in the building. And then later on, gathered customer feedback from the engineers and seeing what they did right and what they did wrong in getting better to make their product even better for the end consumer. Great.
And to round out our presentation on these 3 chapters is an interactive survey that we would all like you to take. It takes about 10 minutes. And what it does is it tests your potential entrepreneurship traits. And we have a form to go along with your survey results, which will be attached to this presentation.